Hello, this is the second part of the videos for multiplying matrices. And so you learned about the restrictions on the sizes of the matrices. Now we will learn how to multiply matrices. So let's say that you have two matrices. Both of them are 2 by 2. And so let's just make sure that we can multiply them, and so we see that these two adjacent numbers are equal, so we can multiply them, and we know that our resulting matrix will have dimensions of 2 by 2. Okay, but so this is just basically a review of our last video. Now we will see how to multiply them. So I'm going to erase this bottom part and I'll continue. Okay, so to multiply these matrices, what you do is take the first row of our first matrix and the first column of our second matrix, and then you multiply the kind of corresponding elements. So this is our first element of the column, and we multiply with the first element of the this is the first element of the row, and we multiply with the first element of the column, and then we multiply the second element of the row times the second element of the column, and we will add their products. So to make it more visual, we will put it right here. So our resulting matrix for our 1, 1, so we are using the first row, so the result must be in the first row, and we are using here the first column, so our result must be in the first column. So that's how we know where the result should be placed on the resulting matrix. And we will multiply A times E, so the first times the first, so AE, and then we will add B times G. Now we will keep the first row, and now we will move to the second column. And now we will multiply these two. And so since we're still using the first row, we will still have our result here in our first row, but since here we're using the second column, we will put our result in the second column right here. So here will be our result for the multiplication of this row and this column. So let's multiply just like we did before. So our first element right here times our first element right here, so A times F, AF, plus our second element right here, B, times our second element of the column, H. So plus BH. Now we're done with all the columns that we can multiply by the first row, and so we can now move on to our second row right here. And so we know that the results of the multiplications of the columns times this particular row will be all in this row, right? Because we are using the second row, so our results will be found in our second row. And now it just depends with what column we're multiplying it by to know what column our result will be in. So we will multiply the second row times our first column, so it's gonna be our result right here. And we will do exactly the same thing we did before. We will multiply our first element of the row times our first element of the column, so that's CE. And then the second element of the row times the second element of the column, so plus DG. And now we can move on to still multiplying our second row, but now times our second column right here. And again, the first times the first, CF, and then our second times our second, plus DH. And as you can see here, we have 4 different entries in our resulting matrix. So we have 2 rows and 2 columns. And you might recall that in our previous video we said that if you are multiplying 2 matrices, these 2 numbers must be equal, and then the resulting matrix will have this number of rows and this number of columns. And that is true. Our resulting matrix is a 2 by 2.